Why is my copy not converting? If you have ever asked yourself this question, this episode is for you. So today I am going to talk about 14 reasons why your copy may not be converting. So let's get into it. So let me start by defining what conversion is. It's not necessarily a sale. It could be any action that you want your reader or prospect to take. So it could be clicking a button that takes them to your sales page. It could be opting in for a lead magnet. It could be signing up for a webinar. Any of those things are considered conversions. So if they are not taking the action that you want them to take or expect them to take, it could be for many reasons. In this past week, one of my posts on LinkedIn went viral on this exact topic. So I thought it would be a good one to get into even more. So in that broadcast, or in that post rather, I talked about 7 reasons why your copy isn't converting. So today, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll have some visuals to go along with this. Today, I'm going to get into 7 more reasons on top of those. So I will start with the 7 that were in that carousel. So 7 reasons why your copy may not be converting. It could be a landing page. As I said, it could be an email sequence. You're sending out emails and people are not responding. They're not clicking on your button or whatever it is you want them to do. Maybe it's an ad. No one's responding to your ad. Regardless, now you hit publish. You wait for a response, and what do you hear? Crickets. So why is my copy not converting is the theme here. So it could be for one of these reasons. Number one, if your messaging is more confusing than a corn maze in a teenage horror movie. I'm sure you've seen those. So you know there's just no way out unless you don't mind getting attacked by whatever monster is hiding in the corn maze. And that's never good. So here's why it's a problem. One of the main reasons why copy doesn't convert is a lack of clarity. I talk about this quite a bit because it seems like an obvious thing, but so much copy and so much messaging that I see online is just vague as the vaguest thing you can think of. Fog, I guess. So unclear messaging jargon or corporate speak, that's another thing, can confuse readers or send them screaming off into the night. So how do you know if your messaging is clear? You need to eliminate marketing speak, which is everything that just sounds fluffy. If you're using terms like best in class or life-changing or anything else that really means nothing, get rid of it and really define what it is that you are trying to say and make it super crystal clear. The second biggest problem, and this actually should be number 1 because I go through this all the time with my clients. It's one of the main reasons that I am hired is because value propositions are nowhere to be found. So on a site. So number 2, if your value proposition either makes you sound like all your competitors, which means you have not differentiated yourself, or worse yet, you don't even have one. And so a value proposition has to meet a number of criteria. For example, it needs to be memorable, succinct. It has to say exactly just one thing. Too many people I see, especially on B2B sites, they try to put everything in there all at once, and it ends up breaking the first rule, which is the lack of clarity. Okay, so you need a value proposition that states exactly why someone should choose you over your competition. That's got to be upfront. The third reason, well, here's just to backtrack a bit. So why it's a problem, your copy again should make it clear who you serve, what you do, and the value that you bring to the table that your competitors do not. And so number 3 is your copy may not be converting because you're using a fire hose to deliver your message. So what I mean by that is what I mentioned briefly already, is that you're trying to put too much into your messaging all at once, and it just ends up being a big, muddy mess. So less is more when providing information to your readers. You want to give them enough facts that they can make a decision, but you also want to avoid overwhelming them with lengthy content. And even in your copy, consider this. When you're writing your copy, you want to have one thought per sentence. This is kind of a side note to all of this, because a lot of times run-on sentences I often see on a page taking up almost the entire paragraph, if not the entire paragraph. Whenever you see something like that in your own copy, stop for a minute, think about what are the individual thoughts and break it up into smaller sentences. People are more likely to read it, and there's a ton of research to back that as well. The fourth reason that people aren't converting or not paying attention or not clicking on your site is that maybe you're too nice. And by this, I mean, if you are stating a problem or dancing around the issue, you're not making the reader realize, for one, that they know that you understand their problem, but you're not bringing it back to the surface. Because a lot of times people will start looking for a solution to a problem and then quickly forget all about it because, well, maybe it's not so bad. So they land on your website, they start reading what you have to offer, and they're like, I don't know if this is really for me. Maybe it's not that bad, and they click off. So what you want to do is, as I say here, a dash of lemon juice on that paper cut wakes them back up to the reality. So you want to just remind them in specifics again, be very clear about what they've already told you because you've talked to them, right? So you know what they're going through. And I'll remember when you said blah, blah, or you don't state it in that way, but you run through the scenarios that they are already experiencing so that they understand, you know their pain, but you're going to bring the solution. So you're not being super mean. Okay. It sounds like it. And unless you're a sociopath, it will bother you, but you have the solution and that's why they're there. Number 5 is if you try to cheat the system. And by this, I mean, it's a problem because maybe you're big on looking up hacks on TikTok. I know I do. There's a whole bunch of household things like using toilet paper rolls to straighten out your curtains is great for a hack, but you don't want to use hacks for customer research. There is no substitute for talking to your customers, analyzing demographics and psychographics. Psychographics, the difference is like attitudes that your audience has. Demographics are pretty solid. They're like the age and the income and all the things that you think are super important, which are as part of your research, but it's not everything. Psychographics is their attitude and how they feel about things, their opinion, what really irks them. I did a whole presentation once on the difference between psychographic and demographics by illustrating. There's a picture of King Charles next to Ozzy Osbourne and how if you look at their demographics, they're identical. Psychographics are a little bit different. You would not be marketing to them the same way, but yet if you only use demographics, that's what happens. And so you really need to dig into the research to know your customer. Okay. So you can't cheat on that. And just coming up with ideas in a boardroom without any outside influence is not helpful because you're not seeing the problem as your prospect or potential customer could see it. And 6 is if your copy has the emotional appeal of fake crying on reality shows. And I say this because people make decisions based on emotion, even the most corporate, stiff, seemingly robotic humans. And by the way, this is where AI falls short. AI does not have any emotions. They can maybe come up with something they dig up on the internet, but they don't feel like a human feels. And that's how we make decisions. And even if you say, I'm a logical person, I really, I think things through and this isn't me, research and science shows that we all do it. So even if you think you're making a logical decision, you may justify your decision with logic, but you are making that decision because of an emotional reason. So you need to get the emotions into that copy. And it goes back to understanding what they're going through and writing your copy in a way that brings out those emotions that enable them to make a decision and decide to make a move, to take some action on what you're asking them to. And number 7, you ignore objections, hoping they disappear, and they don't. So you want to know kind of anticipate what are people going to object to with working with you. Maybe it's price. Maybe it's the time frame that you need. It could be a million different things, but ignoring those objections never works. So you want to take the objections, address them on your website or wherever it is that maybe your email. And sometimes if you have a series of emails going out, like in a launch, for example, each email could address a different objection, and you really address it fully so that this is something, because if people have an objection to buying or clicking on or taking action on your offer, chances are they're not going to tell you about it. They're just not going to do anything, and they'll click off. And so you'll never even know what happened. And so again, you want to anticipate, why your ideal customer may not take action, and then talk about how you would resolve it in your copy. So as I mentioned, if price is a potential obstacle, talk about the value you bring to the table. Maybe you also have payment plans, so you can talk about that. Sometimes that is the difference. I've purchased things that I would not want to pay the full price for, but yet if it's broken up into a few months, sure, I'll do it. So you need to let them know that you understand and that you can accommodate them. So that was what appeared on LinkedIn. So I came up with 7 even more reasons why your copy isn't converting. So 7 more reasons why your copy isn't converting. Your headline is so boring, insomniacs use it as a sleep aid. So that's pretty bad. When you consider that 80% of people don't make it past your headline, your headline, your subject line, anything that is the first thing that they see has to be something like curiosity invoking or something that makes them say, wow, I want to keep reading this. Weak headlines or opening statements that just don't land are instant death. I mean, no one's getting past that. And even in the best situations, only 20% of people are going to continue reading your copy. So you want to make sure that headline or opening statement really lands. And this takes testing. There are some apps out there that you can use. There's a headline analyzer. I think that's exactly what it's called, that I use to run by some headlines, and it will tell you how effective they predict that your headline will be. So make sure you really get that down. Number 9, if your offer is more aggressive than proposing marriage on a first date, that's a problem. And this is all about knowing what stage of awareness your prospect is at. So stage of awareness, and I've talked about this a number of times in other broadcasts, but the unaware is people don't even know they have a problem. Pain aware is where the majority of people are when they start looking for a problem. Something is bothering them. So when you meet them where they are in their buying journey, you're more likely to capture them. So if you have an ad, for example, that really outlines in detail what you offer, they are really ready to buy. Then you send them to a landing page that's a mile-long sales page that goes through stuff they already know. They may just say, you know what, forget it. I'm not going to do it. Because now you've given them too much time to talk themselves out of it. You want to have something that's, okay, they're coming from this ad. So you prepare a landing page that starts where that ad ends. So maybe it's just, here's how to buy. It could be something super simple. On the other hand, if the person is not ready to buy and they go on your site and you have a click here to sign up button and they don't even know what they're getting into, they're also going to bounce. So you need to know where they're coming from. And this is why it's great to have different landing pages depending on where that particular customer is coming from or prospect is coming from. And number 10 is you don't let others do the selling for you. That could be a problem. And what I mean by this is social proof. Now, there's a lot of caveats with this lately because I don't know about you, but when I go on Amazon and I see that there's 100 5-star reviews and they all say things like great product or I would buy this or I love this, a lot of times they're fake and people are very wary of testimonials. So this is why I advocate for video testimonials. If you can get them, they're hard. People don't like doing video. I get it. But at the very least, have a picture, have a testimonial that sounds legit. Because it is, right? I mean, then why would you have anything that's not? But there's a lot of people out there who are doing some underhanded stuff. So you want to make it like, say, a case study, maybe better. So you actually outline what your customer did, what was the before and what's the after picture. And a user-generated content, social proof ads. Like, this is why sometimes texts, if they're used with the permission of the person who sent it to you, hey, you said this really nice thing about me. Can I do a screenshot and use it on my site? And chances are they'll say yes if they really liked your product, but you always have to ask. That's the thing. I've heard stories many times. I've seen my own texts go up on a site where I did not approve it. And I didn't say anything to this particular person that I'm talking about because I did like the product, but it would have been nice to be asked. So, but you have other people there that are telling others like them that, hey, this person has some good stuff out there. And number 11, if your text is formatted so it forms a solid wall of copy high enough to keep out a herd of giraffes, that is also a problem because no one reads. If you see a wall of text, I see this sometimes even on a social media post where it's not broken up at all. And you don't even know how you're going to get through it and you just skip it. I see this less and less. In fact, sometimes I see it as going in the opposite way where every single sentence is a new paragraph. There's sort of a happy medium in there where you want to make it what I call scannable. So people typically will scan your copy. So they're going to be jumping usually from bullet points, subheadings. They'll be looking at the things that stand out. If they're super interested, they'll go back and read the details, but make it easy for them to absorb. Make it interesting. And this is where images work. And a lot of websites are now going to like a minimalistic sort of approach where it's a lot of images, not a lot of copy, because we're lazy, right? We like to read pictures. We like to see pictures. So, and here's one thing about voice and tone. If your voice is heavy metal, but your audience is classic piano music. So what I mean by that is you need to know the voice. And let me differentiate first what voice and tone, the difference is. Your voice, think about your own voice. Okay. You have the same voice all the time, but your tone can change depending on your mood, maybe the message you're trying to get across. So your voice doesn't change, but your tone may, depending on the point you're trying to get across. So this comes down to branding. When you think about the Dollar Shave Club, very snarky, kind of laced with profanity, but it's funny. That's their voice. And then their ads will kind of play off of that, depending on what it is they're advertising. And think about other voices that you see. Like Apple has a very distinct kind of authoritarian, like this is, we're the authorities. We know what we're doing. But yet there's a little bit of fun in their headlines a lot of times. But when you read the rest of the copy, it's very serious and it really shows that they are on point with what they're talking about. So you need to know what your brand is and how it relates to your customer, how they are going to perceive it. So what is it that they are open to? What do they like to hear as far as, the way you talk and your branding? If they like your brand, don't change it. Don't change your voice in every ad or copy, or it's going to throw them completely off. And so the 13, if your call to action sends your audience into a confusing whirlpool of decision-making, that's never good. The call to action button has got to be crystal clear. Here we go again with the clarity, right? It seems like, why wouldn't I be clear? But a lot of times it's not. Think about it like this. Your button copy, even though it's called micro copy, because it may be just a few words, that is literally the conversion point. That's literally the conversion point. That's where conversions happen. So it's almost like a door that opens into a passageway that the person isn't sure where it's going. So you need to be clear with that button copy. They should know exactly what's going to happen when they click on it. So if you have a header, say your hero section, the top part of your homepage, that is kind of vague, but you have a button that says, click here to sign up. It's sort of human nature to click that button, even if they're not ready. People are going to click on it. They're going to go to the sales page they're not ready to see, and then they're gone. So a better way to address that conversion point may be to use, instead of a call to action, a call to value, which may bring them, you've probably seen this, maybe you use it on your own page. You bring them down to more information on the product or on the point that you're making. And so you know that they're not ready, but if you want to rush through some of this copy, here's where you're going to find what you're looking for. So the call to action should also be completing the sentence, I want to sign up now. I want to schedule a call. Think about it like that. And kind of a side note, people seem to respond better when it's put in the first person. Even if you say, I want this, put it like that seems to convert better. So it's a lot. Even though it's a small little thing, it can make a huge difference. And so this is a little snarky. Number 14, if you think SEO stands for stop endlessly overanalyzing, which is what I am very good at, actually, it actually stands for, obviously, search engine optimization. If you have this great website and you don't use SEO, all your effort goes out the window because no one can find you. So you want to do a lot of research or hire somebody to do SEO for you to make sure you're including the words that people are using in their search. But the one caveat is to ensure that when you're writing your copy, when you incorporate SEO keywords, that you don't make it obvious you're doing it. Because I have seen some sites where they're chock full of keywords. They overuse the same word over and over, and it gets so redundant because you know what they're doing, but you don't have to repeat those keywords 15 times in a single paragraph in order to get these search engine results. But you do need to include some so people can find you and know that you're the person for them. In the end, it's a matter of really finding out, you want to research what is it that is causing people to not convert. And this takes A/B testing. This takes running through this list of everything I just named and asking yourself a whole lot of questions. So I hope you found this helpful. Again, if you're listening to this on the podcast, all the slides are on my YouTube channel, so you can go through and kind of double check and see how you fall on all of this. So I hope you found this helpful. If you did enjoy the podcast, please rate and review. And until next time.